Anyway, you guys ready? All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and we have minutes from last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, Judy moves to move the mission minutes.
Second.
Seconded by Steve. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Did we approve the agenda?
We have a new item on the agenda.
Yeah, do we have any changes to the agenda to approve?
I didn't see anything.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second. Motion by Teresa, seconded by Dana. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, and we have a public comment period. Anybody care to address the board?
Good morning, Commissioners. Bruce Kimiko from Caledonia. Yesterday, I delivered a letter to Char Miners with regard to the Bonanza Grain pending permit. Ken Chuck and I were in contact with the Environmental Quality Board over this pending permit, and thought we'd received some information from them that seemed pertinent, and I'm wondering if you did get the letter from Ken and I. And then later in the day, I emailed each of you individually on your email website the letter that I sent to Seifert, and the response that, how do you pronounce his name, Simpson? Smizer, excuse me. Seifert passed on my information to Smizer, and he emailed me a response, and I emailed that to you. Did you receive that? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Anyone else care to address the board? Mr. Griffin?
Yes, Dan Griffin with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd just like to clarify a little bit on this Bonanza Grain issue. This is an issue. First of all, the zoning administrator and the Planning and Zoning Commission is fully aware of this statute. And if you go to the website where this statute is listed, the Minnesota State website, you need to go to the definition of terms as to how does this statute apply. And I have a copy of these definition of terms for you. First, the state of Minnesota defines what they mean by silica sand. They mean it's well-rounded sized quartz of grain with very few important impurities in terms of other minerals. Specifically, the silica sand, for the purposes of this section, is commercially valuable for use in hydraulic fracturing of sand to obtain oil and natural gas. The silica sand does not include common rock, stone, aggregate, gravel, or sand with low quartz impurity. The production coming from this mine does not meet this definition. Furthermore, the state goes on to state that a silica sand project must excavate, mine, and process silica sand. Processing includes washing, cleaning, screening, crushing, filtering, drying, sorting, and stockpiling. Some of those activities are going on, but not to the extent that makes this sand qualified for frac sand. This statute does not apply to Bonanza Grain.
Thank you, Dan. Anyone else?
Sorry, Mike Fields, Winnebago Township. I was just listening here. It would seem to me that the guy at the Environmental Quality Board, Mr. Seifert, is familiar with those terms and seemed to agree with what it was that Bruce had in his letter. And then as far as the definition of silica sand, I mean, it's, hard saying not knowing. I mean, let's take a look at the sand. So as far as I'm concerned, it's his opinion as to whether the sand meets the definition in there. But it seemed that the Environmental Quality Board agrees with Bruce. Maybe a decision should be postponed until we can take a look at the sand and measure the sand and see if it really does fit the definition of silica sand. So I think a decision on this issue today would be premature based on partially what Mr. Griffin just said.
Can I respond, Justin?
You know what,
Okay.
I'll tell you this, Dan,
All right.
normally I would say no,
Yeah.
due to the fact that you're on the planning commission. I'll let you rebut quickly.
Okay. I would just say that if you call the Quality Review Board and define this as a silica sand project, they will tell you exactly what you need. But the definition is wrong. And I have a sample of the sand that I picked up at a dairy farm this morning. It has dirt, it has rock in it. This is not frac sand.
Thanks, Dan. All right, we got time for one other person, if anybody wants to speak. Sir?
Good morning, Commissioners. I think I'm just going to briefly reiterate what I said a couple weeks back. I was at the Planning Commission meeting where they approved to move it forward to the board. Frac sand, not frac sand, cow bedding. What I'm concerned about is that a citizen approached the Planning Commission with a violation, saying that there was damage done to her home. What I encourage you to do is put yourself in her position. Do you feel that she was given due recourse? Do you feel that approving this permit today, she will go home, she will be at home and she will think that her complaint was heard, was treated fairly, and that there was some sort of, the solution is there and she's happy with it? I think part of what this comes down to is that I don't feel it is. I feel that the stipulations that were put into the approval of this permit, one that they warn her of a blast, they'll try to warn her of a blast 24 hours before, and then maybe try and get a hold of her the day of, is not adequate. And two, that she has access to reading the seismograph at her home. She doesn't know how to read it. She has to request that from the blasting firm, and if she has a problem, she sues a big blasting firm out of Chicago. I worry that others like us who are watching this and watching what happens when we have a problem with a mine, problem with if it's construction, if it's silica, if it's anything, if we come before the Planning Commission and the board with valid concerns, do we feel that anything's going to happen? Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, we will go on to regular business with our first. Bye.
Morning. I was just going to catch you up to speed on the Planning Commission. Public hearings that were held on November 18th. We had about 5 things on the agenda that evening. I'll just quickly go over them. First thing on the agenda was Larry Hansen, who was rezoned in his Yucatan Township property last year already, and is going through the platting process. He came in with a preliminary plat that had been discussed in prior meetings and found some inaccuracies in the survey and description part of it that had been fixed, and he brought that back into the Planning Commission on the 18th, and they recommended approval of that. Second was Robin Schlegel in Union Township, and she came in with an application for an ag-oriented business to start a wine processing and wine sales business on her property. They currently have a small vineyard on the property, but she's also looking at purchasing grapes from local growers to go ahead and process that ag product into a wine. Planning Commission did recommend approval of that one with conditions that they follow all federal, state, and local rules and regulations pertaining to that type of operation. Next was Jim and Cindy Bird. Had two applications on the agenda. One was tabled for the home occupation. I'll just touch on that a little bit. They have a, I guess you'd call it a lodging business on their property in Winnebago Township, where they hold gatherings, functions, parties per se, and there is capability for lodging in the loft part of that building. It was formerly an old mill from the 1800s that they have revamped, updated, put some work into it, I guess, whatever you want to say, and would like to go ahead and use that to generate some income on their property. Questions came up on that part of the application, and as far as the business part of it. A couple things come up with the floodplain and whether they could meet FEMA and DNR's requirements for that, as well as Department of Health requirements for the lodging facility. And so with the questions hanging out there, Planning Commission went ahead and tabled that application, and we'll be bringing that back in December 16th. So the other one on the agenda from the Bergs was land alteration proposal on the same parcel as the lodging facility, a substantial alteration to remove some fill that's currently in road right-of-way and wetland areas that includes shoreland district areas. They need to remove that material and place that south of that old mill or lodging facility in an area to create parking for their business. And so with that in mind, Planning Commission recommended approval of that one, as long as they abide by all federal, state, and local rules and regulations. Last thing on the agenda for the evening there was the Bonanza Grain proposal to expand their mine operation here in Caledonia Township. If you remember, back last spring, the board approved a 6-month permit to go ahead and use the facility as it has been used historically. There were several conditions put on the permit at that time. A couple of them that they would place 6 seismographs around the facility the next time they try and duplicate a blast that had occurred last April. And they attempted to do that with the same number of holes being drilled on this final blast. The depth was consistent, the area was consistent with where they had blasted back in April. And the seismograph readings and air blast report showed that they did not exceed federal or state limitations on that. So they are looking to expand up to 17.08 acres from their current 10-acre site. They would still meet all setbacks from roads, property lines, houses, that type of thing. And Planning Commission did put 3 conditions on that application. Of course, that they would abide by all federal, state, and local permits. And 2, that they would place 4 seismographs around the area for future blasts, and that they place those seismographs at Shebers, be to the north, Bobby Sheaver's house, the back 40 Supper Club, directly east. And then Brent Schrader's house would be to the southwest, and Nancy Schrader's house to the south of the current land. So, and then the third condition they put on was for 24-hour advance notice in the future blasting to those surrounding neighbors. Planning Commission felt that those three conditions were adequate to accommodate the use of the property. Like you said, it's historically been a mine, and with the small expansion here, they felt that that would answer a lot of questions that have come up in the past as far as blasting and everything else. So, with that in mind, let's say, open up for any questions you had, or look for a motion, or.
The Bonanza Greenwood, that never got surveyed, did it?
Yes, it did.
Oh, it did, okay, good.
Yeah.
You just didn't mention that, I just want to make sure.
Yep. It was right at 17.08 acres. And the southern boundary is right up to the 1,000-foot setback from Brent Schrader's house. And so that's, they followed that, back around and encompasses the whole line.
Clarification.
Clarification.
Was the last blast on the opposite side of the quarry as the house damaging blast? And if so, would that have an impact on the difference?
No, it was not. It was on the same side of the hill.
Anybody have any questions?
No question.
Real quick, I was just gonna mention too that I know Crew Cows have a good business out there. We're patrons of their facilities. And I know they supply a lot of the cattle bedding and all that kind of stuff. So I know that's kind of gotten some maybe emotions brought up into this whole deal. I know Crew Cows are aware of the moratorium on silica sand mining, so I'm not concerned that it's going to get turned into a silica sand mine right now. I know, Bob, you had mentioned in an email that we were presented with the scientific data from the Planning Commission and stuff like that, but I haven't gotten that yet. I guess my only concern is I'd like to make a decision based on science and not hearsay and stuff, but I haven't gotten that yet. Is there any way to get that?
Which information?
You had mentioned that we were given information, you've heard testimony, you've seen the science, you've seen the findings and the comments and conditions forwarded by the Planning Commission. But I haven't gotten any of that stuff.
It would have been part of the minutes that were forwarded to you. It's in your packets.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
it.
but the scientific data, I haven't seen the last blast stuff.
I think we got that.
Yeah,
We got
I
that
did.
2 weeks ago.
But I didn't, that was the kicker.
You should have, your name was on it.
Yeah, it didn't come through, or whatever, because I haven't seen that yet.
we got to the meeting.
I can sure get you another copy.
Yeah, that would be great, Bob, I appreciate that.
Sure, just bring it up. If you're missing some information, just let me know.
Yeah, because I didn't know any of that stuff was handled, so I didn't get it, but.
Do you want it all in motion or separately?
It's up to you guys, I guess.
Probably separate on the different permits, because we've got, there's two, correct?
4.
There's
Well,
four.
the one was tabled.
One
Second was
table.
tabled.
One got taken.
Yeah, so there's 4 to make a motion on. Larry Hansen being the preliminary plat. Maybe you'd want to do that separate, for sure.
So we don't have to do a motion on the preliminary plat, or we do?
I think you do, yeah.
Okay. So I'll make a, go ahead.
Make a motion, approve Larry Hanson's right on the plan.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Dana, seconded by Judy, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
I'll make a motion to approve Robin Schlegel's ag-oriented business.
Second?
Motion by Judy, seconded by Steve, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Move to approve the James and Cindy Berg, is it land alteration permit?
Okay, moved by Steve,
I'll second it.
seconded by Judy. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
I'll move to approve the Bonanza Crane expanded mine operation, existing permit number 118.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Judy, seconded by Steve. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Anything else, Bob?
No, other than if there was any questions on the other zoning permits. Okay.
You don't need a motion on the permits.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the zoning permits as
Just this top one?
That's printed?
printed.
Oh, yeah, but for three of them.
Second.
Yes. I apologize, I was talking about what's going on.
I made a motion to approve the zoning permits as printed.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Judy, seconded by Dana. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
There was one last renewal request from Travis Zinke Partnership to renew conditional use permit number 262. It was originally issued in 2006. This is for mining of fill in Crescent, well, actually Hoka Township, I'm sorry, near Miller's Corner there, if you're familiar with that site.
What is he doing there exactly?
There's black dirt that's
Okay.
used on landscaping or construction
Okay,
sites.
okay.
And he
Is he
utilizes
putting in
that.
any rock? Do they replace it with rock?
No, actually, he's creating kind of wetlands in areas where he's
Oh,
excavating
okay.
out and creating ponds.
Okay.
One of the requirements back at the time was to put a couple wells in to determine if that's going to impact the water table in that area. And so that was one of the conditions at that time. And it's been checked and it hasn't seemed to impact the wells as far as, you know, when he excavates that material out, does that affect the local
Somebody
water?
called me that they thought they were putting rock in there. Building a bike trail was the question I got. Okay.
I don't think so, but I'll check next time I go by.
Okay.
So-
Well, they're hauling all that rock in there might be confusing people.
That's across the road, isn't it?
Yeah, that'd be, is that
Yeah.
where you're talking, the Onyx plant is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a separate site.
This is in the, you know, that.
So they're not putting any rock in the wetland or?
No, no.
Okay.
Not that.
I was gonna go look at it, but I didn't have a chance to.
They don't really take a lot out of there either.
They stockpiled quite a bit early on,
Did they?
and I think they're still trying to use
He's
it.
been doing it for years. I
Yeah.
don't think there's been a problem.
So do you need a motion for that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the Travis Sankey CUP.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Teresa, seconded Dana. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Okay, then one last thing, Dana asked if I'd just touch on ordinance study group committee. We had a meeting here about a week ago. Some of the things that we've been discussing, I'll just kind of update you on that. We've got a list of things we've been kind of talking about. I'll just run down through here. Campground definition within our ordinance, questions come up. You know, we do require a conditional use permit for any campgrounds. And it has been presumed in the past that these are for commercial campgrounds, although there's no definition of it. So we're going to work on putting together a definition. I've got some examples from Dodge, Fillmore, and Winona counties and what they use, and other counties too. If there's something there that looks enticing, we can work through that. We haven't put anything down as far as that yet, but we've been discussing it. The other thing, a couple other things, these one-lot subdivisions, for instance, like Larry Hansen is going through right now, and you just made a motion on the preliminary plat. The thought was that we would like to streamline that process or make it less restrictive on folks if they're within 2 miles of a city. And so we're talking about maybe another district, an urban expansion district or like a rural residential within a mile or two of these cities that would allow non-farm housing, you know, and that's good planning to put your housing near cities, put your residential development in areas where it's already occurring, as opposed to out in the rural areas where it could conflict with feedlots or mines or something like that. So we're working through that. We've got some good ideas, some good examples from other counties. We're actually, Houston County is one of the few counties that doesn't have urban expansion or kind of a second district. In Houston County, it's only residential or ag, of course, and you got highway business and some of the commercial ones, but be nice to have something between the residential and the ag, you know, near towns and something that would make a little more sense.
This was always a concern in Crescent Township, you know, because we're so close to the city.
Right.
And in order to put up any houses, they had to go through the planning process and,
It gets
this
to
would
be
give a-
quite cumbersome, yeah,
Right.
to go through that. So, yeah, they've been coming to our meetings and they've been real good to get their perspective on it too. They do their own zoning over there and it's nice to get that perspective as well. The other one was development agreements. That was brought to our attention here a few years ago. In fact, our land use attorney, Jay Squires, had mentioned that we should get that into our ordinance. That's for developers putting together a subdivision. You know, our ordinance currently has a timeline for getting a street done, you know, and the type of street that you're gonna build has to meet minimum requirements and inspections by the highway department engineer and things like that. But we don't have a developer's agreement that would help basically hold their feet to the fire to get this done. A developer's agreement would be something that's signed at the time that they file or record the final plat and makes them accountable, basically is what it is. That's something we did. I did put a draft of that ordinance together and presented that to the committee the other night. And so they're looking through that and we'll come back and discuss it further. Planning Commission findings, there was a misprint in our current ordinance. There was only 14 listed in our ordinance. Well, there's 15 when we walk through any typical conditional use permit. So we added that 15th one. It was omitted for some reason in the past. Then Section 11, Board of Adjustment. When they review variances, state statutes have changed in how they look at them variances. In the past, there had to be kind of a hardship or a good reason to issue a variance, and the state has kind of backed off a little bit and required that they just look at a practical difficulty. If it's more difficult to put that, for instance, a building not closer to a property line, the Board of Adjustment can weigh that out without being so harsh on the landowner, homeowner. Makes it a little less restrictive, actually. So we're following with state statute on that. The other couple more here, the illicit discharge and connection ordinance. That's something that's required by MPC. We have to get that ordinance into our ordinance within the county here. My opinion on that is that I don't think it belongs in the zoning ordinance. Simple fact that it only pertains to La Crescent Township and La Crescent City. Illicit discharges are discharges that get into public right-of-ways and end up in the storm sewer system for the city. And only areas near metropolitan areas are affected by this. Well, La Crescent being close to La Crosse metropolitan area. So basically, we don't have any jurisdiction in La Crescent Township. So I think that's not something that belongs in the county ordinance. I do think it's something we do have to put together. We do have a draft of it, but I think it should be included in our list of other ordinances, like our solid waste ordinance, our peddlers ordinance that you guys just approved last summer, clandestine drug lab ordinance, whatever that is. Yeah, I think it belongs on that list. There's currently 13, this might be number 14. So we can discuss that further in the future here. Like I said, Brian Pogodinsky and I did put a draft of that together. We've been working with NPC on that one. Then some simple misspelling things, gender neutral wording things that we need to go through the ordinance and look at a little closer. And then the last thing we discussed was the Planning Commission term limits ordinance that was approved by the board here a few weeks ago. And La Crescent Township did kind of have a good question with that, in as far as the wording that pertains to future Planning Commission members being represented by each district. Of course, La Crescent Township has their own zoning. They have Planning Commission members from their township, But if they follow the letter of the law, they would have to get planning commission members from each commissioner district throughout the county, and they're not good with that. So that's something we may have to look at a little harder, among other things. But that's just a quick run through of what we talked about.
Do you guys have scheduled meetings for it, or?
Yeah, the next scheduled meeting is December 23rd coming up.
Okay.
So we'd like to have a couple commissioners come. If we could, we'll all be here. Steve, you were the last person.
Yeah.
Are you planning to? What we
Yeah,
need
the
to
word solid,
do
yeah.
is let's plan on you two, and if you can't,
Get
talk to
somebody else.
another
Take it over.
commissioner to go.
Yeah.
This will all,
So we're always
yeah,
represented.
this will all have the, we'll need a public
Yeah.
hearing on this all again too. So
Yep, once we
Any
get
idea,
a draft
timeline?
together.
Do you have a timeline on that at all?
Probably spring sometime.
Okay.
You know, we got a ways to go here.
Mhm.
You know, so, we've been having about one meeting a month here. If we move along and get some draft ordinances put together, maybe every 2 weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of material for them to look at right now and sort through. So, like I said, we'll have one right before Christmas, probably one after the first of the year, right in January, middle of January or something like that. But we'll keep you abreast.
7 o'clock.
Yes. And that's all I had, so.
Can I interject one thing as a member of the planning commission?
Is from what?
As a member of the planning commission from the study committee,
You mean according to this business that we're doing right now?
yeah,
Sure.
this study committee meeting that we had the other night, there's a lot of, maybe not, I mean, it's up to the chairman whether to speak or not.
No, you can talk if it's about this.
It's about this study committee meeting. There's, from what Bob said, there's a lot of things we're doing here, and I think as a planning board, we would like to, you think you guys can digest all of that stuff in one public hearing, or should it be split in a couple of things?
You know, that's a good point, Glenn, and I'm glad you guys are doing this. A lot of stuff has probably should have been done a while ago. I'm glad you're getting to it. That's a question. I don't know if you could. I don't know if we should break this down. You know, I don't know. I guess it'll be
I'm just
what comes
asking
out of
this,
it, you know?
Because, we need communication from you guys, which way you guys want to see the county go. And if we're discussing something that you don't think is the way you want to go, we're spending a lot of time, and the township people that are coming into these meetings, nobody's being paid for any of this stuff, so we're not just wasting our time.
And to go off on that, Glenn, I'll tell you, I think everything that I've seen on there, I think is good to go over and look at.
Yeah.
I guess it'll all depend, and maybe putting the cart before the horse, it all depends on what you guys come out of that. And then I would say that, those findings would come to the board and say, this is where we're at. Now we need to hold a public hearing, and at that time, we can kind of say, okay, let's break this into 2 categories, or, for right now, I think just study the material and let us know kind of where you guys are going. I don't see any issues with what you guys are looking at, for sure, But, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. But that's a good point, because there's quite a few on there that would be tough to maybe get done in one deal.
When you're talking interim districts and residential districts close to cities and maybe outlining areas, in non-agricultural areas, this gets a little complicated.
And we may have to have several, we may have one big public hearing on one issue that it might take, I guess we'll have to play it by ear. But yeah, good point.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about that too, because there's a lot, there's a lot. So, yeah, no, good. Anything else?
No.
Commissioners, any other things? Okay, thanks. Bob, thank you. Tess?